This is the She Dares to Travel podcast, and I'm your host, Raquella Pollock. After spending a decade managing the #1 travel agency in Canada and now working with tourism businesses in risk management, I am here to connect you with women who are taking the travel industry by storm, as well as business professionals with a passion for travel, just like me. We are here to inspire, motivate, and uplift you to not only follow, but plan out your dreams, no matter where in the world they may be. Be sure to leave a review, subscribe, and follow along. Welcome back to another episode of She Dares to Travel, where we explore the dynamic intersections of travel, business, and of course, adventure, one of my favorite things. And today we're joined by Emily Spadafora. She is a seasoned entrepreneur and former business development manager at Westjet Airlines. Her journey in the travel industry is very exciting, and I used to work with her when she was a BDM at WestJet Airlines, and I worked at the travel agency. So I'm thrilled to reconnect and find out more about where the industry has taken her as she has evolved into pioneering roles in transportation and hospitality, and also her own ventures. Her career literally spans from the skies to the sands, where she brings this wealth of experience of creating these exceptional travel experiences. And her entrepreneurial spirit has led her to co-found Intimate.Wine, which offers bespoke in-villa wine tastings in the gorgeous Chianti region, which my mouth waters when I think of Chianti wine. I wish I was there right now. And she has also collaborated with a really unique stained glass studio company that is renowned. My Italian is a little rusty, so Emily will have to correct me if I'm wrong here. I think it's pronounced Vetrate Artistiche Toscane. We will find out. But through these ventures, Emily enriches travelers' experiences really by blending the luxury with this cultural immersion, which I know when I travel, those two things are top notch when it comes to my travel when I'm looking for luxury and culture. So sit back, relax. If you're driving to work, stop somewhere and get a cappuccino, or maybe pour yourself a glass of Chianti, and let's dive into the insights in this ever-evolving travel landscape that we are in. And let's hear from Emily on the secrets behind crafting these unique experiences, as well as her personal journey from aviation to hospitality and to entrepreneurship. Emily, it is so great to see you. How are you?
It's so great to be here with you. I'm doing fantastic, and thank you so much for having me.
You are so welcome. And I have to ask, with that gorgeous rock wall, for those of you that are watching on YouTube, where are you right now?
Okay, well, I'm in a villa right now. I'm in the Chianti region. I'm just outside of Panzano.
Mhm.
It's about 40 minutes south of Florence.
Gorgeous. And how long have you been there? When did you get in?
I've been here. I spend my summers here in Italy, so I've been here for a couple of months already, and I love it. I love every minute of it. And currently, I wish I could tell you that this is my villa. It's not my personal villa, but it's a villa that we do work at quite a bit, and we're very, very happy to be affiliated with them.
Gorgeous. And what a way to spend your summers between Canada and Italy. That is an incredible way to work. And I want to dive into how you make that work in a little bit. But tell us a bit more about your journey. I know when I knew you, this was, pre-2020, you were working as a BDM, business development manager for WestJet Airlines. Talk a bit about how you got into doing that in the first place.
Well, you were really going back. So, working with WestJet was an absolute fantastic experience for me. I loved every minute of my 10 years there, almost 10 years, about 2 months shy of 10 years. So it really started quite a long time ago because when I was thinking about getting into tourism, I actually went to flight school because I thought, you know what better experience than to become a flight attendant? That's actually what I wanted to do. And I was in flight school when 9/11 happened.
Oh,
And
wow.
yes, yes. So we were sent home for the day. And I remember very vividly watching it on TV and feeling this just a gut-wrenching feeling in my stomach of, oh my goodness, like what's going to happen to the industry? Nothing will be the same. And what should I do from here? Kind of a panic. And
Mhm.
I did, in fact, change my my path in school from going in from flight services to getting a degree in hospitality. So it did change things for me. It was the first, kind of alternate mind switch, but it didn't stop my love of travel. I knew I still would be traveling, and I knew that it was going to be an important industry for me to be in. And even though it changed the landscape of things, there's been many things since that have changed the landscape as well. And
Hmm.
so yes, basically went into hospitality, started traveling, started working at hotels, and then really wanted to go international. So I started working for an international company called the Travel Corporation. And people might recognize the brand Trafalgar or Kentucky or Insight Vacations. So I worked for them in Toronto for a little bit and then moved over to the UK, worked for them there, and then I came back, and airlines was always in the back of my mind. It was always something like, what about an airline? What about an airline? And when I moved out to Calgary, with at that time my current employer, WestJet was so prominent in Calgary. It was their home base. Everybody was talking about WestJet. It was just an amazing energy around the company. And I did love what I was doing. I was already into the business development world, but more of a sales manager than a business development manager. And then the opportunity came to interview with WestJet, and it was quite a rigorous process.
I
It's
can
a
imagine.
yeah,
Hmm.
it's a big company, bigger now even.
What
And
was there anything that stood out in that process that was really strange or really unique? Or was like anything in particular that you think of that was just the hardest?
I think the whole interview process was quite difficult. And
Um,
I also knew that I was up against people who have been in the industry, because it was, I don't want to say it was a coveted position, but a lot of people were very much interested in that position when it came up. It was a business development manager role for Southern Alberta. And I wasn't living, like I'm not, I was living in Alberta, but I wasn't a local to Calgary, So I felt the stakes were really against me, and I was very nervous. And I think we ended up with 5 interviews in total, panel interviews and interviews with HR, panel interviews with the management team, interview with the team that I would be working with. And I think that there were just so many incredible candidates. And I think that what helped me was being young in my youthful kind of ignorance, if you will. I was still fairly new to the industry, and I didn't have any preconceived notions of what was or wasn't. And therefore, I feel that that really helped me along with my journey, and just being very open in my interview and
mhm.
open to be able to adapt and change. And I think that maybe that's what kind of tipped it for me, because WestJet, when I started with them, all the way until when I ended with them, was absolutely adapting every single day. So you had to have
Wow.
that spirit to say, yes, okay, I can run with that. And so I feel like
Mhm.
that's probably what tipped the scales for me, and really worked in my favor at that time.
Interesting at that
Mhm.
time. Well, and it's something to remember as you move through your entrepreneurial journey now to keep that spark and that passion and excitement and to be able to say yes and pivot, which, as we get older, sometimes we can lose. So that's, yeah, really interesting. What would you say in your 10-year span, like a whole decade at WestJet? And, people listen to this podcast from all over the world. I'm assuming people know WestJet, but it's a very large Canadian airline with international travels, large fleet. What would you say is there a highlight or something that sticks out in your time with the airline working there?
There are many highlights. I look back at my time very, very fondly, and I have not a bad thing to say about the company. It was an
No.
incredible time to be part of the company because they were in growth mode. And so you just had this electric energy around you all the time, and um, everything was possible. You know, if you had an
Mm.
idea, you could bring it up. And we had a leadership team that was a very, very open to hearing what you had to say, open to feedback, open to change, open to, even though, you know, of
Mm.
course, it's a corporation at the end of the day. So you had to follow, you know, certain standards or regulations or play within certain lines. It was still young enough company. It was bordering on that teeter-totter line of, a company that you really could be innovative with and be part of that innovation process, and a company that had these deep roots that you had to just look at and respect because
Mm.
they had already built it into a really, really very popular airline at the time that I came on with them. So
Absolutely.
all that to say, I think it came down to team dynamics, open and willingness to grow with the company. And then I think that we had some pretty incredible experiences with the company. Being able to fly jump seat was something I
Mm.
never thought in my wildest dreams that I would get to do. And I got to do that a bunch of times, and being in
Explain
the
what jump seat is. Flying jump seat.
jump seat is when you're flying up in the cockpit with the pilots. And
So cool.
man, it is just such an experience. I mean, it still does happen in the company today, as far as I know, but it's maybe a bit less frequent, just given the state of our world at in these times. But yes, there were just so many really wonderful experiences. One experience I can tell you is kind of funny, actually. One time they were like, "Hey, could you actually, we're doing a runway opening at Calgary International Airport. They're opening the long runway there, the longest runway that they have right now. And do you mind just, we need somebody to kind of head up this project and bring travel agents to the grand opening of the runway?" And I was like, sure. Like, I'm in Calgary. I'm the business development manager. I'm working with all the accounts in Calgary. So yes, definitely. I would love to get some travel agents out there to be part of this experience, because you don't get to stand on a runway very often, you know? So I
Hmm.
said, yeah, sure, let me do this. And then at some point, somewhere along the line, they were like, hey, can you drive this cube van full of Biscoff cookies to the runway before you head over there? And I was like, you want me to drive this cube
Sure.
van full of, like, you know, 100,000 Biscoff cookies onto the runway? Yes, I am your lady for that. I can definitely do that. And I think I brought another employee with me on the ride, and it was just, again, that would never happen again today. And I hope it's okay that I'm even telling you this story, but certainly it
We'll
was,
find out.
you know,
Yeah.
those fun things that were like such a highlight, you know, that you never
Well,
think, well, this is
totally. And what an experience. And it's those random things that we, as people that aren't in the airline industry, we never think of. We never think of how these things happen or those events that happen and the clearance that goes into allowing you to drive on the runway, even. So it's so many things that go on behind the scenes. And I always love talking to people that have been in the aviation or airline industry because it is a whole nother world. But once you start peeling back the curtain, you're like, okay, interesting. Like they just got it dialed in so well. Yeah.
yes, yes. What a fun
Yeah, very
experience.
true. So I want to know maybe secrets. Something you could tell that we won't get sued over, please. I'd prefer. But is there anything, or not even a secret, it could be like a tip, because you've clearly traveled on a ton of flights. Is there some sort of travel tip that you swear by when you travel, or is there a tip you can give when you're on a plane or when you're checking in, or is there anything that just pops into your brain for some advice you could give?
Yes, and I think maybe probably people might know, or maybe they won't be privy to this, but for me, it's like a no-brainer. I try to stay away from weekend travel. If you are
Mm.
looking to travel and you can travel like a Tuesday, Wednesday, that is the best time to travel. You will find the best deals for travel mid-week. As soon as you hit that weekend, I mean, it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
But we don't always think about it. We're not always thinking like, oh, you know, if you're looking to go away for a weekend, of course, that's maybe not an option for you. Or you could, you know, take time off midweek if you can. You know, I
Yeah.
feel like work is becoming a lot more flexible for people in many, many ways. And so if you have the ability, you know, look at midweek travel versus weekend travel, because that is where you're going to find the flight loads, or certainly you'll find better deals.
It is so simple. It's such a simple advice, but you are right because everybody always tries to travel on weekends. Always, always, always.
Always.
And you know what popped into my mind is one that I feel I didn't even know about when I started at the travel agency. And I remember it was a WestJet agent that I was on the phone with, and I was helping someone with a bereavement fair. And it's something that I think a lot of people forget that if there has been a loss to your immediate family in your life, when there has been a loss in your life from immediate family member, that is something where you can actually call the airline and there is bereavement fares for travel. So I think that one's a big one too, that just popped into my brain for things. And WestJet has always been so helpful. I remember calling into WestJet for the 10 years that I was at the travel agency, and that was one of my favorite airlines and people to talk to because everyone was always in a good mood. Even if they had a lot of stuff going on, they could still crack a joke. So it really speaks to the culture that you all had as well.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It
Yeah.
was, and
Yeah.
I think it still is. I feel like companies grow, they grow up, they change hands, this and that, but I still exclusively fly WestJet today if I can. I still have that teal running through my blood. I don't know.
Hmm.
Uh, People always are like, oh, now you can fly, Air Canada or whatever. And I say, yes, I could, but I still have that soft spot in my heart for them.
Yeah.
And I want to see them succeed. I think that Air Canada is a wonderful, wonderful company and provides
Hmm.
really great services and services that, WestJet doesn't have. And so that's great that we have that diversity in the marketplace. But,
Hmm.
I guess I'm always been a root for the underdog kind of guy. Not that I think WestJet's an underdog airline anymore. I don't think so. But when I
No.
started, definitely we were pounding the pavement really, really hard uh to get that clout, to to
Yeah.
to move the name up. Yeah.
It is so true. I'm the same. I'll pay more to fly WestJet and keep my tier status if I can, just for the
Yeah.
extra perks. But I do. I'm a huge fan of WestJet.
Your
So
status
talk,
matter.
it does matter. Status
It
is a huge
does.
thing. And I think that's a reminder for a lot of people that if you are flying, if you can stay loyal to a certain airline, they will come back and help you out if they can. Like through 2020, we couldn't use a lot of our status. We couldn't use our rewards points. They actually the next year kept my status at, I think it was gold. So I was gold for another year for free because they were
Yeah.
like, we know you couldn't travel. We're just going to move you for another year. And I appreciate that. So little things that, they do that are thoughtful. But I want to find out the transition from, of course, the airline. I know 2020 was a big pivot, was the word of the year and change that happened. How have you taken your experiences from working as the BDM for WestJet into what came next that ultimately has led you, into the hospitality world, as well as this glass blowing company and co-founding this wine experience in Chianti?
Yes, pivot is a great word for this.
It was really annoying
Um,
for a while, actually,
I
but
know,
it
I
was a
know.
great word. Yeah.
Honestly, I always think about the Friends episode when the word pivot comes up. So it's always, if you're a Friends series watcher,
I am, but I'm not as avid. Is that a big one that came up?
the pivot episode is people who know. And, as much as people say, oh, I'm so sick of the word pivot, all it does is make me laugh because of that episode,
I'm gonna
it's
watch it after.
I'm okay
I
with
will.
it. I'm okay with it. Because that is what happened, when you end your career after with a company which you clearly know I have spoken highly of. It's a really, really challenging thing, but I think that there's part of me that's probably I don't want to say like the hopeless romantic, but an optimist for sure, because I think that you have the choice in every situation you're in to have the perspective that you want to have. I mean, that's a freedom we have, as individuals, we get to think for ourselves. And so when you're faced with a situation, you also have the ability to think about that situation and think, how do I want this to impact me? And what will my story be from here? And
Mhm.
WestJet was a huge part of my story. And I even have friends, kids, funny enough, that call me WestJet to this day. They're like, "Hey, WestJet." I'm like, Guys,
Okay, that's really
I'm
funny.
not Westjet anymore, but okay, that's pretty cute, you know? So, it does. It's you get wrapped up in identity of one certain thing, but at the end of the day, yes, I believe that we have the ability to recreate our stories, and I think it comes down to your own self-talk, your own personal journey. And mine, there was something inside me that, oh, like I really wanted to stay in transportation. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to just study this course and go into transportation. So I went into logistics because I thought, you know what? I can take logistics back to airline and work in air cargo. So I was working for a transportation company, working their logistics as a sales manager for BC. And I really did enjoy it, taught me a lot. I was there for just over a year, but it wasn't a passion, it wasn't the passion that I had been feeling in my previous life in the travel industry. It was a very interesting experience and I'm very thankful for it. But from there, I said, anybody who knows me in my life on a personal level knows that I love Italy. And my roots are Italian, so I think that it's always been in me, even though I'm only half Italian and still
Me
trying to
too.
learn still trying to learn the language even,
Yeah.
a few years
Which
into this.
which part are you from, your family of
So
Italy?
my father's side of the family is from Calabria, Cosenza.
Oh yeah,
And
beautiful.
so the South, and difficult life down there. Still to this day, I think it's still a harder life down there than in other areas of Italy for sure. But I have had this drive to get back to Italy for a very long time, and it's been percolating inside me for for a really long time. And when I was really truthful and honest with myself about working at the transportation company and saying, is this really like feeding my flame? Not to sound completely, I don't know what the word is exactly, but hokey, I guess. But
Well, I always call it doing things that set your soul on fire. So when you say flame, I totally relate to that because it's
you get
true. It is
it.
a thing. I get it.
It
Oh
is.
yeah.
It is
Hmm.
definitely. I didn't have that there. I was thankful for the experience and thankful for the new connections and the interesting learning curves and all of the things that came with it were great, but it wasn't that fire that the industry gave me. And I said, if there's ever a chance for me to go do something different, it's now, it's right now. It's got to happen right now. Because I know the industry was starting to, I don't want to say at that point it was bouncing back, the travel industry, but I had every faith from day one of lockdown that I knew this wouldn't go on forever. I knew we would see a bounce back. I knew, that businesses that closed would reopen. I knew that mergers would happen. I knew there would be a lot of job opportunities coming down the pipeline. And I saw this window of opportunity to say, okay, at this stage, there's space and time for me to go. I have to make a commitment to myself to trust my process. And, I made a very difficult decision to leave to, well, we're in such a turbulent time to leave a company that had given me the opportunity to work in a wonderful role. So that was really hard for me to do because, I think we want to work, right? I think entrepreneurs are workers and
Yes.
they're, you kind of put value in this is my work ethic, this is who I am. So leaving something to go somewhere unknown for me at the time was a challenge, was a challenge for myself, but it was a welcome challenge at that point in my life. It was just the right time. It was just the right
Yeah.
time. I had sold a property in Langley, British Columbia, and I had a little bit of extra cash flow that would allow me to make this transition. And so I didn't go into it blindly. I had some stable legs underneath me at the time to say, okay, financially, I'm going to be okay for a little bit. Mentally, this is going to be the best thing for me that I think I can do for myself right now. And I don't know, I guess spiritually, this aligns with where I need to be right now in my life. So I did just I rented out my apartment and I picked up and came over to live in Siena, which is in Tuscany, and beautiful. I just completely fell in love with it there. I mean, it's a very safe place to be. There's a lot. I feel like people always just skip over Siena or they only go there for like 2 hours. And I'm like, how could you?
It's gorgeous.
Oh man,
Gorgeous.
I
Yeah.
just really love it. The history of Siena is really diverse and very interesting and still very alive today, the culture of Siena and Sienese people. So I have a lot of love for it and a lot of interest in being there still. And so I also didn't want to, I guess I'm pragmatic in the way that I didn't want to come to Italy and flounder. I needed a
Mhm.
focus and I wanted to do something creatively very badly. I just felt, we were under the weight of the world, and maybe some people still are. And I have a lot of sympathy and space for people who are still going through rough times because it has been extremely difficult for people. But for me at that time, I just wanted to refocus my mind and do something creative. And my dad had been teaching me stained glass to his probably hesitation. He wasn't very excited about it, I have to tell you. So I think he was, my dad's always, of course, he's always happy to spend time with me, but I think
Mhm.
those are his internal things that make him happy. And he's an introvert. So, when I was like, hey, can you teach me this? And he was like, yeah, sure. I think been asking him for a couple of years, and he was like, yes, yes, one day, one day. And then finally, he let me into that
It was the day.
artist world. And I
Yeah.
just got the bug for it, stained glass. I was like, I love this so much. And I had found a stained glass studio in Siena. And I had reached out to people all over, like in Mexico and other parts of Italy and a few other areas. And a lot of people were coming back with like Mexico was like, yeah, come on down, no problem. We're still in the pandemic, right? So I'm aware of this. And Italy was like, here to fill out this 10-page form. And I was like, oh gosh, I don't really want to do that either. And then this stained glass studio in Siena was like very personable and just wrote me
Mm.
back and we started talking and we were talking for months. I mean, me coming to Italy wasn't like, boom, I'm coming. It was a process of about 9 months where, I was like in my mind on day one, I was like, I really want to go to Italy. How am I going to make this happen? And then that layer effect just kind of came in, and took over. It was like, okay, I'm going to sell my tenant left in Langley. And I was like, you know what?
Mm.
I'm going to sell that apartment. I just I don't want to be driving out to Langley all the time and dealing with it. So I sold it and it sold and I was happy about that. And
Mhm.
then my apartment got rented and then the
Mhm.
snowball effect
Mhm.
happens. And then they finally, this stained glass studio finally let me, agreed to let me come and study there. So I was just coming.
Okay.
So the whole purpose of coming out to Siena was to study with the stained glass studio.
Thank you to Hotel Z Kelowna, Victoria, and Tofino for being our sponsor. You can also save 15% off your next getaway using the code DARES2, DARES 2, the number 2, at hotelz.com. These funky and unique hotels are in British Columbia, and they're going to have you not wanting to leave while you're on your next vacation. Enjoy!
A lot of people will tell me like, "Oh, you had your eat, love, pray moment." And it's like, yes, I definitely did. There's truth to that. And it was absolutely wonderful. The moment I stepped into the studio, I think anyone that's worked in the tourism industry or has had a really incredible trip in their life, where they look back on it fondly, and there's like this core memory that you can still taste or smell or feel emotionally. When I walked into that studio, I had that core memory of the first time I fell in love with travel. I literally cried because I was like,
Mm.
gosh, this is just like where I'm supposed to be, you
Yeah.
know? This is just where
I
I'm supposed to be.
those experiences are even more special when you have followed your heart to get there, because clearly there are the and thens you're talking about, but you seized the opportunity, you found it, and you listened to that nagging voice being like, I need to do this, I need to go do this, because if I don't, I may miss out on something. And the
Yeah.
fact that it all aligned so perfectly to be able to find this studio, and that is emotional, of course it is. That's a beautiful moment. And so, with you learning and studying the stained glass, how long were you doing that for?
So I literally just came for a 10-day course. I was like, I'm going to come for
Okay.
a 10-day course, but I'm going to stay in Siena for 3 months, you know? Like I just, because it was the pandemic still, I wasn't like very interested in traveling around. I just wanted to plant my feet for a little
Mhm.
bit and explore Siena, explore this one town of Italy in depth, you know? So my whole plan was just to stay there the whole time and maybe do a day trip here. Okay, go into Florence. Okay, go into, like a little town not too far away, Montalcino or something like that. But
Yeah.
really, I wanted to stay focused on Siena. And so I did my 10-day course. And while I was there, I just started bonding with the owner. One of the owners, there's two owners to the studio, Massimo and his brother Gianni. And we were working together every day, you know, and he was teaching me and I was learning and we were laughing and, you know, the whole thing, it was just a great time. We were having a good time. And then the course ended, and we had built, I would say, you know, this level of friendship over 10 days, which, when you travel and you just do that, you just build these
Hmm.
relationships in 10 days, and yet you can live in a city and not build friendships for 10 years. It's
It's
the
true. I don't even know my
strangest,
neighbors. I'm
right?
here. Yeah.
It's the strangest thing. So yeah, why I felt we built this nice friendship. And at the end, I just had said to him that, I said, hey, I'd really love to just hang out if there's an opportunity for me to come in and look at what you're doing or, whatever, just keep in touch.
Mhm.
And he was like, well, actually, we just got a commission for Vancouver Island. And I was like, get out of
Ah.
here. Get out of here for Vancouver Island. Like, he's like, if you want to come work on it, I'm happy to have you here, but I can't pay you or anything like that. And I was like, no, 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 I'm not looking for payment. I'm just looking for an experience. And if you're okay to have me, like, just text me when you're going to the studio. And so it became like this daily routine. Like,
Mhm.
he's like, hey, I'm going to the studio, like 8 o'clock in the morning. And I would say, okay, I'm coming, maybe at 9. And I would go to the studio, and whatever they were like, some days I was just watching, and learning because they
Mhm.
just got the commission. So I got to be there through the entire process.
Mhm.
So there were days where, they were just teaching me like, hey, this is what you would do next. Or there were some days that they were like, just don't come in because it's gonna be too boring. There's nothing to teach you today. 2 days, those days turned into me cutting
Mhm.
and letting, soldering, and
No
going
more.
through the entire process. And so,
Wow.
at the end of 3 months, I had gained a lot of experience from these gentlemen who are experts at what they do.
Hmm.
So
That's once in
how
a
lucky,
lifetime. Yeah.
oh, it's a once
Once
for
in a
sure.
lifetime. What is your involvement with them now?
So over that 3-month period, we started
Mm.
talking a lot about the business because stained glass is, it's a tough business. It's a tough business. It's not like churches are ordering stained glass at the rate that they used to be in
Mhm.
the, in the 18th century or the 13th century or
Yeah.
whatever it might be. But But there's still a market for it, and it's not just religious market. There's still a market for it in heritage homes, personalized, like coats of arms in
Mm.
people's. It doesn't have to be a heritage home, having it even in your own home,
Hmm.
any home, it doesn't matter. It's a beautiful
Yeah.
piece. We do universities. We do a lot of work in universities. Of course, they do a lot of work in churches still. But
Yeah.
while we started talking about the business, I said, "What's your plan here?" It's just you two. Like, what is your plan? And they're like, it's been really tough actually. So we don't know how much longer we're going to be able to keep this studio open. And they've been in operation at that point for 38 years. And I was like, no. You can't just close
I
this
won't
down. Is
stand
that something?
for it. Yeah. Ooh.
Well, I mean, my question to them was, is that what you want? Is that
Yeah.
what you want? And they said, no, no, it's absolutely not what we want, but we don't know how to reach people. We don't know how to, people used to knock on our door and they don't knock on our door anymore. And the reason for that is because, society's changed. People's habits have changed.
Hmm.
People, aren't people still, there's still that like word of mouth, but it's digitally, it's like
Yes.
you send a
Yeah.
link to your friend and you're like, hey, you should check this place out or go for dinner
Hmm.
here. Like, hey, I went here on vacation. You should definitely go. And they didn't have an online presence, really,
Yeah.
really.
It's changed. Hmm.
So I said, you know what, I can help with that. I'm not looking again, this is like I guess a pro bono, I just want to help. I just want to be involved
Hmm.
and I want to continue this relationship. And I just felt very strongly that they have something very special. They have something
Mm.
very special in that studio, and I want the world to see it,
Mm.
Like
Beautiful. And experience
it's
that feeling of passion and that overwhelming sense of whatever it is that you cry. Like you said, when you have that travel experience where it brings you back, you hear a song, you have a smell, you have a moment. And for you, I can imagine you see a piece of stained glass and it'll take you right back to that first moment of when you walk through the doors. Oh.
Absolutely. I mean, anyone coming into Europe, are you not going to go? Anyone coming into Italy, going into
Hmm.
Florence, are you not going to go see the Duomo? Most people are going to go see the Duomo. Why?
Hmm.
Some people don't even know why they're going, but they walk in and there's this grandeur, they're like, wow, it's incredible. This is incredible. And it's even more incredible when you know the work that went into it, and you hear a lot of, if you go do a church tour and you listen to the audio or you take a guide with you, most of them won't talk about stained glass. They'll talk about the marble columns and they'll talk about the
Mm.
statue and the altar and they'll talk about the history of the building. But most people aren't talking about the stained glass. And look around, there's stained glass everywhere,
Hmm.
So to be able to share the history of stained glass, which plays a really important role in
Hmm.
Italy and Siena specifically, I think that it just enriches your experience when you are traveling around anywhere, but especially in Europe, to say like, wow, wow, look at this building. And yes, look at those marble columns, but also look at those incredible stained glass windows that are from the 13th century or before,
Hmm.
and how were those made?
Beautiful.
Oh, I know how they were made, because we're still making them
Yeah.
in the exact same way today, the traditional style. That's what's so special about this studio, is
Mm.
that they're doing traditional work.
How do you pronounce the name of the studio?
Exactly, exactly how you pronounced it. You
Oh,
pronounced it better than I can,
yes.
actually.
It helps. Well, every time I go through the words, I'm like, okay, the E's sound like an A, the I's sound like an E. Like I have to kind of remind myself before I
Yeah,
pronounce something. Oh, that's
yeah,
too funny. I will make
yeah.
sure to put a link in the description of this episode so everyone can find it, check out the website, see what it's all about. And if you're in Siena, go visit and go check this out. I know I will. I've been to Siena. I absolutely loved it. I actually bought a beautiful pair of Italian leather heels in one of the shops there. And then we went to the big, is it the Palazzo or the squares?
We
that they
went to the
had, like
piazza, the piazza.
piazza. Yeah, the piazza there. We had a nice glass of red wine. We just watched. Oh, it was a beautiful experience. So I love Siena. I want to know though, from this experience that you've had, and then moving into Intimate.Wine, which is the in Villa Chianti region wine tasting, how did that connection form
Mhm.
and ultimately bring you to be there?
Well, you know the saying, eat, love, pray, right? So I feel
Yeah.
like the stained glass studio was my form of praying, I guess. And I definitely didn't have a
Yeah.
hard time eating my way through through my days there.
I'd be
And the
disappointed if you didn't. I'd be
Well, you know,
disappointed.
yeah, I'm gonna be honest with you, it was pizza or pasta every single day and gelato
Oh,
probably every other
oh,
day. You know, tried to ration myself on that one, but it didn't always work out.
yeah.
Um, but I mean, the love part comes into that, and that's I met somebody very early on when I arrived. It was kind of like day three when I arrived.
Mhm.
Italians aren't shy, you know, so
I know
which
that.
I love, which I love that European. I mean, it's also in me. I'm also not super shy, so.
Hmm.
So I think that I met this person who was a sommelier and working in the Chianti region here. And we just hit it off. We just hit it off from day one, had a fabulous time. And we kept in touch after I left, 3 months after I left. And, when, I mean, you go from seeing each other kind of every day to long distance, but long distance
Hmm.
never felt like long distance with him. It was a very different feeling. It just was like, boom, you pick up where you left off every single day. It wasn't a chore talking to each other.
Hmm.
It was just super organic, for lack of a better word. It just felt very natural. And my love for wine only increased when you meet a sommelier. Of course, your world starts opening up. You're like, I like red, I like white, whatever. Now you, and that's totally okay, by the way, right? Like if you're
Yes,
just like,
yes.
hey, I like rosé, and that's okay. That's it doesn't matter where you are on your wine journey. I think wine has a lot of different faces, and a lot of people get really intimidated by wine. I was interested in wine before I met him, and also working at a local wine shop in Vancouver over the pandemic. I was working at Liberty Wines and still work
Hmm.
with them when I go back to Canada. So I've been with them for a few years. And so, naturally meeting a sommelier was like, yes, this is perfect. Great. Let show me the ways
Hmm.
and all of the
Yeah.
things. And as our relationship developed, so too did our meaningful conversations about, what do you want out of life and what are you looking for? What would a next journey look like for you? What kind of job do you want to do? I mean, at that time I was unemployed, and for him, unemployed sounds like such a dirty word, right? But it isn't. I chose to be unemployed at that time,
Yes.
and it was very happily so. And for him, he was going through a very large transition because the pandemic. Of course, he had owned an enoteca, which is a wine bar here in
Okay.
Greve in Chianti, about 35 minutes south of Florence. And during the pandemic, that wine bar that he had for multiple years had unfortunately closed down. I mean, nobody's coming through town,
Yeah.
nobody was traveling. So he lost his business, and I also lost my career. And so there were a lot of uh, deep conversations about, our love for tourism, our love for travel, our love for wine, and it just started developing naturally because I kept coming back to Italy. And as I was coming back to Italy, people were coming to visit, and saying like, "Oh, can
Mhm.
I rent Massey for the day?" I mean, that was the first like indicator to us, like, "Oh, can I rent your fiance for the day? Because, we don't know anything about wine and we want to learn, and or we just want somebody to take us around, who knows the wineries or whatever." So it just kind of kept happening. People were coming to visit, and
Hmm.
then they'd be like, Massey would put on my partner, my fiance, his name is
Hmm.
Massey.
I
And
do love the term rent a fiance, I must say.
right, right?
That's quite good.
That,
Yeah.
it's so funny because that's literally what was happening. However, we weren't charging people, which we were like, we should be charging people for this because he's really good at what he does. He has a lot of
Yeah.
passion for what he does, for interacting with people. He's very passionate about sharing the wine culture here and the etiquette too. I think that's an important
Mm.
part of
Oh, I
wine.
never thought of that.
It
Hmm.
doesn't have to be. I don't want to sound snooty when I say that. But etiquette, what I mean about etiquette is, some people don't understand why you swirl wine, why you might swirl
Mm.
wine before you taste it or smell it. So
Mhm.
it's not to be snooty about it. It's about opening up the aromas of the wine, opening up the wine. So,
Mhm.
that's what I mean by etiquette, not like etiquette, like, oh, I should be dressed a certain way and, sit a certain way. It's the etiquette of wine culture, you know?
Mhm.
So he's very passionate about that. And Can I Rent Your Fiance turned into us saying, there's really an opportunity here but very specifically for people who are coming to this area, Chianti and or Tuscany, because we service both, but primarily Chianti. And there's a lot of villas around here. So people are coming, they're staying at a villa with their friends, their family, and they're looking for experiences around. And a lot of people, I think absolutely, do you need to go to a winery while you're in Chianti? Yes, you have to go to a winery while you're in
Yes.
Chianti, even if
Yes,
you're
yes,
not a
yes.
wine drinker.
Agreed.
I had a girlfriend of mine come, a very good girlfriend of mine. She's not a wine drinker, but I was like, we are spending a day going around and you're
Yes.
gonna like it.
And how gorgeous it is, the views, the view, and they usually have cheese pairings or something with it too. So it's like whole
Well,
experience. That's a
that's just
must.
it. There's a lot
Yeah.
of organic farming practices around here. There's a lot of,
Hmm.
beautiful, beautiful landscapes. And yes, sometimes it's not even about the wine, sometimes it's
Yeah.
just about the ingenuity of the winery that you're
Hmm.
going. Even if you
Yeah.
don't like the taste of that wine, doesn't mean you can't respect what they're putting in behind it, or an operation that's been in, since 1085, or, like that's
Hmm.
the roots are really, really strong around here. So there's always something to appreciate,
Yeah.
but we're really working with we said, a lot of people are doing wine tastings. A lot of people, you can go with wonderful, fabulous companies to go do a wine tasting at whatever wineries around here. There's over 100 in just the Chianti
Mm.
region. So we don't want to compete with that business because they're operating and they're doing it well. What we want to do is what we would want. And
Yeah.
our style of travel now is so much more laid back. Like I said originally, when I went to Siena, I just wanted to focus on Siena. I wanted to live Siena. And I feel the same way now. I feel like everyone in my world that I know wants to travel lighter, easier, calmer, more tranquil, relaxed.
Hmm.
It's not about going to see, being in a city every 2 hours and going from this town to this town to this town. There's a rhyme and a reason for that, and I don't discourage it, but there's also a certain point where you say, okay, I really just want to like travel with my friends and family and slow down. And we rented this beautiful villa, and we have this gorgeous vista, this incredible pool, this farm that's we're on this beautiful land. I want to be here. I want to like
Hmm.
stay and enjoy this
Enjoy.
spot. So that's really what our focus was, is saying, you know what, let's bring wine that we will curate a tasting for people based on their level of knowledge, based on their interest of wine. Maybe they just want to try simple Chiantis, maybe they want to get into reservas, maybe they want to, play off whites and reds, or bubbles, or whatever it might be. So we will bring a curated tasting based on what kind of some target questions are for them. And we'll bring it to their winery and we'll set up a beautiful tasting outside, inside, whatever. If it rains, you're not rained out because you can always go
Hmm.
inside. If it's a beautiful day, which it is often here, um, you can just enjoy it outside with this beautiful vista and know that you can partake responsibly, number one, because you're not on the
Mm-hmm.
roads driving, which
Yeah.
a lot of people do,
Hmm.
and I think part of our core values is trying to keep travel safe. So, it's just kind of takes the load off a little bit. Our
Yeah.
customers so far have said what we love about it is that we just had to walk from our rooms to the front, to the outside, everything's set up for us. We got
Hmm.
to have an enjoyable experience meeting. Massey's a local to here,
Yeah.
and he's been in the wine industry for a very long time, and he is a certified sommelier. So, and we can work with other certified sommeliers too, and we work with some local chefs. So, and curate a wine tasting with a food pairing, or we can bring a chef in to do like a whole meal and a wine
Yeah.
tasting with a meal. And people can just sit back and like enjoy the villa.
It's
After
so
the wine,
true.
they
And you're
can,
spending a good amount of money on the villa. And you're right. A lot of the time, there are such sweeping views in the area. I'll have to look back and send you the link. I can even put it in this episode of where we stayed. I don't think it was Chianti region, but it was close enough because we did a wine tour out of it. But I could see us having a intimate experience right there, overlooking and exactly what you said. Instead of doing a whole day going out, and it takes a lot of time, and usually you're drained by the end of it. So instead, you can go enjoy the day, slow down, and oof, I love it. I need to get back to Italy. It's been too
yeah,
long. It's been way too
yeah.
long. But yeah, I'll have to take a look to see where that was. But there's just so many different experiences. And I mean, now you're promoting the stained glass, you're promoting intimate wine, you're still in the hospitality industry. With the What would you say has been any challenges or any advice that you would give somebody that's looking to be an entrepreneur in another country? Is there anything that, a challenge you've had to overcome or just any advice you can give?
There's a lot of challenges, and we're still navigating them, to be honest with you. I think that starting a business in a foreign country, and anyone I've talked to who has done it has said, yes, you really need to be ready for anything that's going to be thrown at you because everything will be thrown at you. So perseverance is critical.
Hmm.
Holding having a very, very clear mission statement so that
Yes.
this is my goal, this is my goal, this is, what we're holding steady to. You can come back to that each and every time. Why am I doing this? What's your why? Because yes, it's tough. It's tough. It's not easy. It's not an easy process.
Yeah.
Um, so I would say, if anyone's looking to do it, I think that for me, my saving grace has really been that I am working with a local and a local that knows the industry that we're working in. So,
Yeah.
and he's very well connected here. So if we need a lawyer, we have one. If we need an accountant, we have one. We went to a business, we went to a business accountant the other day. And I mean, it was just critical. It's critical to be able to speak with professionals and say, how do we navigate that? We're bringing customers from North America, Australia, New Zealand, Asia. How do we navigate that here locally in Italy? You just have to walk through the process one step at a time because it
Yeah.
isn't simple. So,
Very
perseverance.
much so. I could see how, yeah, absolutely. I was going to say how you'd have to really think outside the box, persevere. But you're right. Having someone trusted on the ground that you can work with is definitely a helpful part of it. That's for sure. Wow,
Yeah.
it's definitely an interesting journey that you've had. It is so incredible to see how you've seized the opportunities. You've looked at adversity or challenges as an opportunity. I think that's something we can all take away, that when something happens, it's easy enough to curl up in a ball and really think about the worst that's happening. And that's okay to do. We all need to take our downtime, but just not set up camp and live there, but really then kind of reassess and be like, okay, this isn't going to be like this forever. What can we do to move forward? And I think you should be incredibly proud of yourself for what you have done and where you've come from and what you accomplished. And I truly hope that this is a huge inspiration for many, and that we will all be able to go to Italy and check out these incredible spots and places that you've created, that you're advocating for. I will definitely let you know when I'm heading that way. Maybe next year. We shall see. We shall see. Where can everybody find you? Websites? What's the best way to connect?
Yeah, so for our website at Intimate.Wine is just www.intimate.wine. There's no .com or .ca after. It's just
easy.
Intimate.Wine. We're on Instagram as well at Intimate.Wine. So those are our main channels for communicating. And then for the stained glass studio, you can visit. It's kind of funny because it's a different name. We're working on it, but archaicoceramicsciena.com. Or you can just go to Instagram and go to at massimo.bracciali. Massimo.bracciali. And we're very active on Instagram there as well. So those are the kind of two ways that you can find us through socials. Yeah.
Awesome. I will make sure all the tags are super easy to find. Thank you so much again for your time, and keep doing what you're doing, keep being creative and innovative, and we will all come visit you very soon.
Thank you to this episode's sponsor, Kentucky Holidays. Let me tell you, I'm speaking from experience. I have traveled on these tours, and I have seen the world in a group setting and made lifelong friends because of it. Check out the link in the episode description so you can find out their last-minute deals, their promotions, and where they can take you around the world. You do not want to miss it, and you will have no regrets. Happy travels. If you like this episode, please subscribe, download a few more, and leave a review. I really would love to hear from you, what you enjoyed and what your key takeaways were. And of course, please let me know if there's any aspect of the travel industry you want me to talk about next. You can also search for the hashtag She Dares to Travel podcast on Instagram and comment on the episode's post with your questions. I'd love to answer them all for you guys. I hope you enjoy your day, stay so well, and until next time, fly straight.